Well, here we go. It's wide open. We got 1 day and 35 food plots. It's go time.
You know, guys, when I was in Kansas last year, we were out, we got out there early, so we were driving around scouting just to see what we saw, for deer, and we're kind of looking at winds and trying to figure out a game plan on what we're going to do. And I looked out in this field and I saw that it looked like radishes out there. I mean, it was a big field too, and I'm like, man, is that all radishes? And then we kind of stopped and actually looked, and I seen some other vegetation out there, and I was like, man, what is that? And when I asked Donovan, the guy we were with, he said peas. A lot of farmers out here will plant radishes and peas, but every time we drove by fields that had that cover crop in it, I mean, there were deer out in them.
Yep. Well, it's funny you say that. So that was probably, whether people believe it or not, but you actually monitor Facebook, and the consumers will tell you what they're needing. And I feel like as a company, and Backwoods has done really good on it. But if you can solve problems for a customer and try to figure out how to make it affordable, but if you can solve a problem, you can have a good product. Yep. So one of the biggest messages as far as quantities of them was having a solution for a pea blend. Mm-hmm. And I wasn't extremely knowledgeable on it, and I called you and I was saying, hey, here's a request. So what do we do? Because we had big 3 plus peas, right? And so that was kind of a answer.
Yeah, you always had peas that you could just add to whatever.
That's you right. To. So you could, we sold peas, then you also had the cereal grains, and so. But when we dove into it, talking to you and DJ, and it's like, well, that's not that works, but there could be a lot more thought process to go behind to come up with a true quality, pea blend, which this year we're introducing P plus, but there's a lot of backstory to that.
Yeah, and I'm super excited about that. So to kind of get on what you were talking about, the big 3 plus the P, to me that was nothing more than just having a P in the name. Yeah, right. There was a few in there, but it was a very low percentage, Right. Yeah. And as a guy that, on certain properties now, you do need some pretty decent soil to plant peas in, You wouldn't want to go do it on that hard ridgetop first time place, right? And you need some acreage. It don't need to be a half acre. It needs to be some size because they're going to get on them pretty hard. But as a guy that, if my property is against next to Slades, as a guy that's wanting to keep my deer on my place and provide opportunities and keep them more off of Slades, because I know he's up there chumming them to death, then this is the next thing that I would say most hunters don't utilize, and it's very highly attractive. Okay, now couple things. You need, like I said, you need some acreage to plant the pea. Okay, and we all work together, and we tried to build this blend from a aspect of, hey, we want a couple good peas out there, but we also want this to actually make, make some good peas that you got to hunt over, because they're going to be really highly attractive to the deer as soon as you kind of get that green to green transfer in a lot of the farming areas. So as soon as those beans start defoliating, they go yellow and start defoliating, and in your mind in the past, your deer really get on your clover fields, or they really get on radish fields. Well, that's the time of year they're going to get on those pea fields. So you need some acreage to plant to have, because they're going to come in, they're going to get on them hard. As soon as those beans go yellow, they're going to be all over those pea patches. And really, the bigger your field is, the better it's going to do. But we did build some things in there that is going to try to help you be able to grow an adequate amount of peas and be able to hunt.
The blend, the plan of it is to have a variety in there that's switching the browsing pressure. So,
absolutely.
Because if you just plant peas, what's the chances if you just straight peas that it ever makes, or they don't hammer it?
Yeah, right. So they're a little bit slower to grow. Yeah. You're going to get the cereal rye to pop out quicker. You're going to get the radishes to pop out quicker. It's not that the peas are that super slow. It's just that the rye and the radish is going to be a little quicker, right? But you do, if you get some water and you've got some decent soil, and you fertilize those, man, you could really have some knee-high peas going into, mid-October.
Yep.
And I'm telling you right now, they're super highly attractive as soon as you get deer when they're leaving, like I said, that yellowing of the stages of soybeans to this, because they love that green to green transfer right before the cold weather
Yep.
starts to hit.
So if you've got, say you've got, it could be 50 acres, it could be 100 acres, you're gonna integrate this into one of them. You're gonna try to have this blend along with others, but it will be a top priority.
Yeah, and I'll tell you what makes it easy for a lot of guys, and don't get me wrong, a pea needs to be planted at about an inch under the ground. But let's say you've got a lease and you've got a clover field or whatever at the back of a bean field, right? And if you go out there, mid-August, before those beans, I mean, they may not turn yellow and defoliate for another 6 weeks. That's okay. If you can go out there and broadcast you maybe an acre, at the back of that field, or 2 acres of these peas, and then those bean leaves start to defoliate, and it's holding some moisture underneath those, man, those peas are going to come out and do really, really well in a scenario like
If
that.
you got some moisture, they will.
Absolutely.
I know you said like a bigger area. If you were to try to choose, say, a half-acre plot, if you were going to fence that off
yes.
Yeah.
or something, something of that nature, like you see people, they'll fence off their beans until it's time to go
I
hunt.
know you use fences a lot in Kansas.
Yep, and we do it very strategically. So when I think of food plots like this, they're a little bit high risk, high reward, right? Because it's not that you're not going to get them to grow. It's, are you going to get them to the stage that you want them? Because the deer are going to hammer them.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
So, I mean, really, unless you're planting in high deer density areas, 4 or 5 acres, which a lot of people don't have that big of a food plot, then you're probably not going to want to do something like this. Now, a half-acre food plot, if you go in and fence that sucker, like what we do a lot, I'll even take a big field and I'll fence off maybe a 1/4 acre section. So I do it with soybeans all the time, right in front of the blind. I'll fence those soybeans, them suckers will get chest tall. And then by the time you pull the fence, there's so much biomass there, the deer can't hardly eat it down. I mean, it's December, January before they've gotten them all knocked down. So yes, we use a lot of food plot fencing. It's pretty inexpensive. It's a little bit of work, but it's worth it for your food plots because it's an investment, right? Like we're going to be hunting this thing for 4 or 5 months. Like I want this sucker right.
All right, we just wrapped up our Hoyman Hot Zone fence. It took us, I don't know, probably less than an hour. Definitely the easiest and quickest one I've done. This little plot right here is about an acre. So we're just gonna hook this thing up and call it a day. The whole reason this thing works, so you can see we've got 2 strands. We've got a double strand here, a single strand here. I like to put this outside strand about knee height, somewhere in there. For the inside lower strand, I like it to be about calf height, so maybe move that down just a little. And then for this top strand, I like it to be about waist height. So those are your heights. The deer kind of see this and they have to decide, do we want to go under? Do I want to jump the whole thing? So it's kind of this visual barrier just as much as it is an actual physical barrier. And a lot of times, once we get this thing hot, as you can tell, it's not shocking me yet. Once we get this thing hot, most of the time they'll just come up and nose it. And when they nose it, it just gives them a little something and they don't mess with it. So this is gonna keep the majority, if not all, of the deer out of this plot until it can grow. And then we'll come back in about September and pull it and let the deer in here. So
the double's on the outside.
Yeah.
Is
And then
on the
single.
inside.
Oh, gotcha.
Yep, is on the inside. And that's really effective at keeping deer out. I mean, you're looking at about 90% if you do it right, which can help your food plots tremendously. And so that's an option for if people do like peas, which I would highly recommend. I think you will be blown away at the deer action in there if you can get them up and get them right. So
It was interesting because I would never, acreage comes into play, or either fencing, but you said in your opening statement was basically, hey, I saw some of these big areas with radishes and peas,
Yeah.
so they, there is a thought process behind that.
Yeah. I mean, because we were seeing deer literally out there, and like every time we drove by it. So it was one of those things where I was like, man, what is that? And I was really trying to dig in what's planted out there. and ended up just being the farmer planting the cover crop, but
Yep.
Yeah.
he planted something that deer like to eat as well.
Yeah.
And here's the thing too, this may be an easy option for guys that's got a lease, that maybe it's out of town or whatever. Go buy, buy 5 or 6 bags of this and take it to your farmer. When he goes in and turbo tills a winter crop just for erosion control and nitrogen booster and things like that, man, you can't do it better than he's gonna do it. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
And you got nothing invested but just, whatever the bag of the seed cost is, and then he's gonna throw it in his turbo planter, and he can, that cove the magic cove, out of that big field, tell him to go in there and, start right there and and plant that there, and then he can go out into his field. That would work very, very well, and then you've got that big field, that's gonna kind of help with the browsing pressure. But there's a lot of things like that you could do. Or if you're a guy that's planted a bachelor pad or velvet plus over the summer, maybe they had a 4 or 5 acre, because most people that's planting that, I mean, I'm thinking they have a little more than an acre size field. It's usually probably 3 or 4 or 5 acres. That's a good thing. Is getting late summer, don't till it, don't disc it, don't do nothing. Just go right through. If they've got a drill or something or access to that, they can drill that right in over their summer groceries.
Or broadcast.
Yeah, or broadcast, either one.
Before it rains.
Man, I'll tell you a cool thing that we've gotten into recently, and I know this isn't for everybody, but it's pretty inexpensive, especially it's getting there, is drones.
Yeah.
Man, we'll take drones in over standing corn, standing beans, whatever, and broadcast something like this. Like, we're going to do it this year at the ranch, and we're probably going to use this P+. But it's really cool, really effective. Yep.
Speaking of Kansas, I mean, you can't obviously bring up that story and then we not jump into
Yeah,
some Kansas.
yeah,
hunting.
exactly.
Yeah.
So where I
Kansas
was
is a
going-
state
yeah,
close to all
yeah.
of us.
So where I was going with that is, I'm seeing the deer out there. Donovan, the fellow we were hunting on, was like, I do have a new spot over there. I picked up this lease over there. Don't know a ton about it. It's on the backside, kind of adjacent to this piece of property with as many deer we're seeing. We may go over there and just throw a camera up and throw some game changer and stuff.
Catch them coming back
Yeah,
in
yeah,
out of
just to
out
see
of
it. Well,
egg.
so Ryan and I, we go over there with them, get everything set up. We dump some game changer out, and hang camera. And we leave them. We're off to we're going to another farm to hunt the evening. Well, we're sitting there, and I mean, we probably just now getting set up in this other farm, and Donovan texts me a picture. He's like, look at this deer, just showed up on that camera we just left. And I was like, man, he looks like a pretty man. He's like,
Daylight,
he's
right out of the
heavy, right out of the gate.
Yeah.
And he's like, I think we should try to hunt that deer. So we'll see how this evening goes. We'll see if we can game plan. So what we did is, you know, we were seeing some deer activity, and Don would texting me that whole night. We're like, man, that deer, he's in there. I'm really breaking down. He's a nice deer. I mean, this is a really nice deer. So I was like, cool. So we get back from that evening, we're like, game plan. I'm like, man, I'll do what we need to do to try to kill this deer. It was basically a big bottom that leads all the way out. Not a whole lot of, you know, ag around it. Obviously, you have them peas and radishes and stuff up top. Well, we literally committed to this deer.
Which obviously he's living close.
Yeah, and he likes the game changer, so we know he's right around there. And it's November, the rut, so he's going to be cruising that bottom, you know, looking for a hot doe. So we hunted literally from daylight to dark, sitting there, and we were seeing other deer come through. Some of them go to the game changer, some other bucks cruising. We were calling, getting pretty aggressive, and then we went in there, and they were like, man, I don't know if he's still there or not. I was like, man, we should probably just go in there. Let's not give up on him. We're just going to stick with it. We went in there that next morning, and it was kind of a foggy morning, and I was like, man, this is the perfect morning, but it just seemed dead. We weren't seeing a lot of movement at all. And I mean, it was about 8:30, and we looked through the fog and we just see some movement, and Ryan's like, there's a deer out there.
Looks like. That's a heavy buck. Smoked him. I smoked him, man. He's down. Gosh! Yes! Oh, that's the deer we came in here after yesterday. We sat all day. This fog, cool morning, Triple H Outfitters right here in Kansas. Oh, I just smoked. That might be my biggest deer ever. I don't know. He's big. He's big. He's heavy. He's big. And I just roasted him. That torch, man, right through it. Dude, I kept telling Ryan all day yesterday. I was like, man, if they do what them other bucks done, I'm going to have to get a full draw. And I just got a full draw, and I sat there and waited. And he just walked right into my pen, and that torch ate him up.
Job, man.
Thank you, buddy.
Job.
Thank you. He's laying right over there.
I seen a belly over there.
Yeah. Yeah. Thanks, buddy. Holy cow. Look at the mass, dude.
Oh, wow.
Dude.
Larry, he's what I thought he was. That is a cool deer.
Look at that. I'll
Yeah,
tell you
and
right
no
now.
history with him, just shows up and we come in here on the second set and kill him. That's what it's
Man, I
about.
can't get over all this mass.
I know.
He got some character, doesn't he?
Yes, he does. It's a good deer.
Well, he's about as massive as he's going to get.
And, it was some of the prettiest footage I think we've ever captured. Just him coming through that fog.
That's cool.
Game changers over here. We're not sitting right on the game changer. It's over here, but he's kind of coming around, hooking around, just like a lot of the other
Going to
deer
it.
come.
Oh, yeah.
Like
Getting
he's going
downwind
to
of
it.
it coming into it.
Yep, and he just walked right by and was able to get an arrow in him. But it was so pretty, and you see him just run off and fall on camera. And when we walked up to that deer, I was like, good night. I mean, his antlers were as big around as my forearm.
I remember you saying you were hunting a nice deer,
Yeah.
and then you sent a picture of a giant. I was
Yeah.
like, "Is that him?" Yeah, it's him. He's a lot bigger than we thought.
But he's one of those. He's one of those deer that just shocks you because it's like his frame's not gonna. You're gonna be like, that's a good deer, you know. But when you walk up on him,
Yeah.
it was like,
Those deer with
Ground
mass
bro,
growth.
it's
Right.
like, oh my word. But yeah. So without knowing and seeing what was going on, I mean, obviously we were thankful that Donovan had another lease. I was similar to it, but being able to actually go around and see, hey, these deer are actually hitting this.
A lot of deer
and that bottom
concentrated
connects
on this area.
right to that. I mean, ultimately, I think that's why that deer ended up hitting the dirt.
Yeah.